Hi, you probably know me from my How to Get Fluent in Korean Within 1 Year video, because that one went very viral amongst Korean learners. And ever since then, you guys have sent me so many questions about learning Korean and about studying tips. I gathered all your questions, and today I'm going to answer the ones I think will help the most people. I will answer the questions in segments, so it should be very straightforward. You can check the timestamps below to just check the questions you're interested in.
I know sooner or later it will come.
I got my materials here, okay? I'm still old-fashioned. I print out all the questions. Okay, this is also the reason why I'm good at studying languages. I'm proactive like this. The first segment is about getting started and staying consistent. I got 2 questions here. Hi, I really want to learn, but I don't know where to start. Learning Spanish or French is easy, but Korean is way out of my comfort zone. Do you have any easy tips for those who are struggling to learn? And the other one, how to stay consistent. I really want to learn Korean, but I feel easily overwhelmed. I assume you are not taking classes, but you're self-studying. And I have 2 possible strategies for you. First of all, the reason why people progress well when they're learning languages at a class is because someone is taking the lead for them and bringing structure into studying. So this means if you don't want to get overwhelmed and if you actually want to progress, you need structure. And either you get that structure through a class or you give yourself that structure. One method that you can do is you get a Korean book series. The first Korean book that I got was SNU Korean. Pop up. My oldest sister also uses this book series, and once you got your Korean book, you just follow it. Everybody has a different schedule, but I feel like you really progress if you do like 45 minutes a day. If that's too intense, just go lower with the duration. I do think getting daily practice for a short time or studying daily for a short time is more efficient than studying for many hours once a week. That answer was probably boring. You gotta get a book and you gotta follow it. Ew. Method 2 is the fun method and it's more my style. If your goal isn't academic, but simply having fun while studying and learning on the way, while keeping it casual, I think this combination works really well. Before you start method 2, you kind of have to get down the basics of the basics. You cannot learn a language without any effort, so you need to at least get the basics down. And what I mean by the basics is learn Hangul first. Hangul is the Korean alphabet. There is no other way to learn Hangul other than reading the explanation of how Hangul is constructed and what every sign or what every letter means, and then memorize it. You don't have to get them down perfectly before you start learning vocabulary and grammar, because the more you see it, the more you will get used to it. And at one point, it's gonna be so easy for you to just read Hangul. After Hangul, you're gonna memorize some basic phrases and vocabulary. By basic phrases, I mean 안녕하세요, 네, 아니요, 반갑습니다, 어서 오세요. You know, these basic expressions. And then you're gonna learn some core vocabulary like I, cat, to eat, to pet. Pet is maybe a bit more difficult, but you get the gist. And then I want you to look at basic sentence structure in Korean. And now that you got your basics, you can start applying fun method to study Korean in a fun way every day and enjoy it and have a blast, not like those not having fun people who go to class and use books. So what I want you to do when you got the basics down is writing a diary in Korean. In my opinion, you only need a Korean diary to properly learn Korean if you know how to use it to learn Korean. But of course, if you want to learn more and faster, the more time and effort you put in, the more effective it will be. But if you only want to have fun, only write your Korean diary every day. Don't even bother about the other stuff. Just write your Korean diary every day, 5 sentences. If you want to benefit from this, when you're not combining it with any other studying techniques, you have to look up the words that you don't know in Korean yet when you're writing your diary. And every time you look up a new word, you gotta write it down on your flashcard. But I will get more into how to memorize vocabulary in the vocabulary segment of this video, so bear with me. But yeah, to keep it summarized, you just gotta be proactive, look up the stuff you don't know while you're writing your Korean diary, and you will improve in no time. I did this, and if you compare my very first diary entry to my most recent diary entry, your mind is gonna be blown. I can't show it because I write very silly stuff, so sorry about that. Okay, let's get to segment 2. This is about grammar and sentence building. The question Fofo Blue Wave sent in is, how do I learn the grammar the best way? I don't know where to start. Everybody has their own studying techniques, but the way I do it and the way it sticked for me is like this. Whenever I stumble upon a grammar structure that I don't know, I just look it up and read the explanation. It sounds really simple, but really that's all there is. If you don't know what this grammar means, just write on Google that ending, for example, the particle e, and read the explanation to it. You read the explanation, and then if you want to get in more practice, you can write down a few sentences with that piece of grammar that you just read about. And then you also say a few sentences using said grammar, just to make it stick a little bit. I really believe in learning by doing. So this is how I learned basically all my grammar, by proactively looking up any grammar that I didn't know yet. Technically, you could write down grammar structures on flashcards and try to memorize it, but if you want to do it the learning by doing type of way, you're just gonna look up the grammar structure every time you don't know what it means. I looked up some grammar structures over 10 times until it stuck. So this way of studying grammar doesn't mean that you only look it up once and then it has to stick. It means that you have to be proactive when you see something that you don't understand. And one thing about Korean grammar is where I feel like some people obsess too much over it is like, what's the exact difference between this grammar and this grammar? It doesn't matter. It's so similar. For example, there are so many ways to say because. You don't have to know the exact difference between every single grammar structure that people in Korea basically use like synonyms. A lot of it only has the difference that it's stylistically different. If one person wants to speak a bit more sophisticatedly, they might use this grammar, and if one person prefers simpler grammar, they might use this one. You don't have to know every single difference. I feel like one thing that stops you the most from improving is trying to know too many details. I do think you have to be proactive, but obsessing over small differences when something's actually a synonym is going to block you. You don't have to know the difference between synonyms. Try to explain the difference between synonyms in your mother tongue, and it's usually people's preference which word they prefer using. When you hear Koreans talking, if you ask 100 Koreans to say the same sentence, one will say 했는데, the other will say 해가지고, the other will say 해서, the other one will say 하니까. So all of them are right. You don't need to know the difference. Don't obsess over it. I'm emphasizing this a lot because I've seen so many people getting fully blocked by trying to recognize differences. You don't need to. Okay, move on. Now let's get to segment number 3, vocabulary. My name is Missol is asking, do you have any tips to make learning new vocabulary fun and effective? I really dislike learning new vocabulary. It's so tedious. RDLSTJD is also asking, what method did you use to memorize vocabulary? Okay. How well you can build vocabulary really depends on how proactive you are. If you want to learn a language, you gotta study. We all know that. But by proactive, I kind of mean looking for words that you don't know and looking to learn them. So let me tell you how I learned vocabulary, because I built my vocabulary pretty fast. Yes, I got my notes down, okay? I want to give you guys good advice, and sometimes if I don't have my notes, I forget something that was important, and then I'm like, oh no, now they don't know. Okay, so in my opinion, vocabulary sticks the best with context. The way you usually learn vocabulary when you first approach a language is you get these vocabulary lists by topic or by chapter if you're working with a book. And I do think, especially in the beginning, memorizing word lists is helpful. But if you really want them to stick, and if you really want to be able to actively use them when you're speaking that language, I think that you need to collect vocabulary from your own life. That sounds kind of weird, but what I mean by that is, I mentioned writing a Korean diary earlier. When you write your diary, naturally you're gonna have to look up some words. Especially if you don't know that many words yet, you're gonna have to look up a lot of words. That's how it was for me. And every time I wouldn't know a word that I would use for my Korean diary entry, for example, if I want to say I went to school and I don't know the word for school, then I would look it up in Korean and I would immediately write it on my flashcards flashcards. Flashcards are my holy grail, but only if you review them regularly. If you're gonna write down a word on your flashcards and not look at it ever again, you don't have to write it down at all. Some people prefer working with paper flashcards, others prefer working with flashcards on apps. You can also learn vocabulary with LingQ, but I'll get to that later. Okay, the next segment is about speaking and confidence and pronunciation. Is there any way to practice speaking the language other than talking to locals? Speaking gets me really anxious, but I really want to practice it. How to not be embarrassed to speak Korean to others, especially when strangers around you can hear you making mistakes. First of all, when you're talking in a foreign language, it's totally normal to feel awkward and insecure, but you can't really build confidence if you never speak the language. Although some people come with more natural confidence than others. Confidence in speaking that language comes from speaking that language a lot. So you need to speak even if you're by yourself. People underestimate how much it helps to speak to yourself in the language that you're learning. Let me explain some exercises that you could do. This one is more to correct your pronunciation, but also to just have your tongue move in a Korean way. For example, when you're watching a K-drama or a Korean YouTube video, just pause the video every 5 seconds and try to say the exact same thing that the person in the video said. So you're just shadowing them basically. This will first of all help you to just open your mouth in Korean and to speak in Korean, and it will also help you a bit with pronunciation since you're copying native speakers. What you can also do, and this is my favorite, this was also part of my getting fluent in Korean within 1 year plan, you can record yourself speaking in Korean for 1 minute every day. You might think, why do I have to record it? It's because recording it is actually something physical, so you get a bit more disciplined about it, but you can also listen to it later if you want to. You can review it. Most people hate listening to themselves, even in their mother tongue. Don't know why, you all sound great. Just get over yourself and do it. It's worth it. If you don't know what to talk about for a minute, I recommend just talking about your day. If you are having a hard time kind of freestyling that 1 minute, you can also just read your Korean diary entry out loud every day. That's why I'm saying the Korean diary is so good, because you get writing practice, you get speaking practice, you get vocabulary practice, everything. Just one thing that's so important when you're practicing speaking is to not care if you make any mistakes. You really need to focus on ignoring mistakes. Trying to speak without making mistakes is the biggest way to stop yourself from speaking. I'm telling this from experience because whenever I talk to SP's mom, I don't want to make any mistakes, and that just leads to me being absolutely quiet. But if I ignore making mistakes, then I talkative a little bit. I know you're learning grammar for a reason and vocabulary for a reason. You're learning it because you want to speak Korean in a correct way. But you build your grammar, you build your vocabulary, but when you're speaking, you gotta throw all that away. I'm not saying to purposefully speak wrong, but you need to turn off that part of your brain that is thinking about all these rules and pronunciation rules and grammar rules. You just have to trust that you put in the effort and you're gonna form your thought the way you can, and if you make any mistakes, it doesn't matter. And if you do speaking practice with someone, if that person keeps correcting your mistakes every second word, tell them to stop. I know you might think that having someone constantly correct you would be an efficient way, but it's not. When you're doing speaking practice, you need to focus on doing speaking practice. You're not practicing grammar or vocabulary, you're practicing speaking. And if this person keeps interrupting you to correct your mistakes, they're just training you to believe that you cannot speak, that everything you say is wrong. Yeah, don't do that. Of course, if you're almost fluent or you're advanced and you only do mistakes very rarely, or like only here and there, then of course it's okay if your speaking partner corrects it for you because it's in a reasonable amount. Now let's get to listening comprehension. Angela is saying, I like to learn from video content. Do you have any tips to make learning fun and effective? Of course. So my favorite studying technique for understanding native speakers with video content is layered listening. I don't know if that's the actual name of that technique or if I gave it to it. Let me walk you through what layered listening is. First, you pick a K-drama or a Korean show, a Korean YouTube video, or a Korean song. If you want to practice reading, pick a Korean text or a book, and now watch or listen to it for 5 to 10 minutes. And I want you to watch it without any subtitles. This exercise is more intermediate. If you're a beginner, you can still do this, but you'll need to use other resources. For example, the mini stories on LingQ, but I'll get to that in a minute. So you listen to the clip and you try to understand as much as you can, and then you listen to it again. And this time you turn on the subtitles or the transcript and you look up the words that you didn't know. Write the ones you feel like are useful on your flashcards and review them. For this exercise, I personally use LingQ. I have mentioned LingQ before, and I really can't recommend them enough, especially for listening practice and for reading practice. The reason is that you can import any of the Netflix shows and K-dramas, YouTube videos, or K-pop music videos right into LingQ, and then on LingQ it automatically generates a transcript for you. And what I really like is that the transcript has these built-in word explanations. So every time I don't understand a word, I can just click on it and I can read the explanation, and I can also add that word to my flashcards. And then I review those flashcards regularly to actually build my vocabulary. The built-in transcript and also the built-in word explanations and also the built-in flashcards just save so much time. So I really do like this for the layered listening practice. It saves so much time and it's so fun. And for the beginners among you, they also have these mini stories and beginner level that you can use for listening practice. So that's also a really nice resource as well. But also for the more advanced people, they also have built-in content like podcasts and other videos. So you don't always have to import some show or video that you found yourself if you don't feel like it. If you just want to get in the practice, you can also just use the stuff that's already on LingQ. I knew that I was going to recommend LingQ to you guys for this video. So LingQ kindly agreed to sponsor this video. Thank you, LingQ. This means that with the link in my description box, you can get 40% off of a 12-month plan on LingQ. So make sure you check that out. It's really worth it. And if you stay consistent, you will notice how much your listening improves, even within just a few weeks. Okay, now let's move on to the next segment. I call this segment Immersion and Lifestyle Learning. The question is, how can I adapt language learning to my life except movies and songs? So that eliminates LingQ. Basically, I wrote down a bullet point list. First, you change your phone language to Korean. Second, you said except movies and songs, so you listen to Korean podcasts. I have a Korean podcast here on YouTube. You can listen to that. It has dual subtitles. You can also follow Korean creators on social media. And you can also get a Korean boyfriend. And like Korean dating apps. Proceed with caution though, because some people are wilding on those apps. I think if you mix passive exposure, like your phone language, with active studying habits, like writing a Korean diary, reviewing your flashcards daily, it's a really good balance to keep you consistent and actually improve without feeling like you're studying all the time and kind of getting tired of it, I guess, especially if you're only learning lightheartedly. And now to the last segment. The question here is, I want to come to South Korea and study. Does age matter? I'm 30 and please tell me if there's a way. Let me give you a very simple answer. Age does not matter. Whether it's languages or any type of hobby, people always think if I didn't start as a kid, I cannot start ever. But I totally disagree. You could be 80 and still start a new thing, because learning new things fulfills most of us. Whether it's a language or an activity or an instrument or whatever, it doesn't matter how old you are. 30 is not too old to learn a language. I started taking dance classes in my late 20s, so it's never too late. If you just want to do it for fun, do it for fun. And if you want to properly progress, the only thing that matters is consistency and effort. So keep doing listening practice, keep writing a Korean diary, keep reviewing your flashcards, and keep exposing yourself to Korean content. That's already it with today's Q&A. If your question didn't make it in, please leave it down below. Maybe I'll do a part 2. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you're working on your listening or reading skills, or you're building vocabulary, make sure to check out LingQ through the link in my description box. And keep studying and don't give up, and let's all have fun.